Welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin Donahue and I'm a travel photographer and content creator based in New York City. Today I'm going to share with you my first time experience on the island of Puerto Rico, focusing on where to stay and what to do in the capital city. The Island of Enchantment offers a blend of history, culture, and natural beauty. While the stay itself was nice, the flights to and from on JetBlue were an absolute nightmare. How do people have such tight schedules on the days that they're traveling? I could never. They'll hop off on the plane and then they'll have an activity or something booked for later in the day. What do you do if the plane gets delayed? That's more than likely to happen, and I actually had one of my roughest travel days to date. Personally, I hate travel days because there's always a risk of something happening. And as someone who flies a lot, I actually get sick a lot on the plane. I have so many stories. I once fainted on the plane and then sprained my neck. And I've thrown up from nausea more times than I can count. I know, TMI, but that's not what happened this time. Getting to the airport was a breeze, it was standard, but then the plane was delayed for 3 hours because it was too hot, and then the AC was broken, so they couldn't cool down the plane. And then when we finally were on the plane, we were delayed for another 3 hours because there was a medical emergency on board. It was just one thing after another, and each hour just ticked by so slowly. It really did feel like we would never take off. When the plane finally took off, people were clapping because it was like, finally! I think that's the one time it's acceptable to clap. Shit happens. I know that. That's why I would never pack my itinerary on a travel day. Once I arrive at my destination, it's a chill time. Coming back was just as bad, if not worse. In all my years of flying, I had never experienced massive delays for both legs of the flight. If I was traveling alone, I wouldn't have cared. But I was traveling with a friend, who also travels a ton actually, but is a teeny bit more type A. So the travel tip here is always book the earliest flight of the day. While it's a miserable existence to wake up at 4 a.m. to get to the airport, it's true that those flights tend to have the least delays and issues. Before fully jumping in, as a professional traveler, I think it's important to point out Puerto Rico's unique position in the geopolitical sphere. Not that this is my area of expertise, but it is the elephant in the room. Puerto Rico is both familiar and distinctly different from the mainland United States. The island is a U.S. territory that uses the dollar and doesn't require a passport for U.S. citizens, yet it maintains a rich and distinct culture that sets it apart. Despite being U.S. citizens, Puerto Ricans on the island don't have the same rights as those on the mainland. They can't vote for the president and have lack of representation in Congress. As a territory rather than a state, this complex political status adds another layer to the island situation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most Puerto Ricans want sovereignty. Their plight is very similar to other occupied lands. The most familiar in the US is Hawaii. As a visitor, I'm aware of tensions surrounding mainlanders moving to the island to take advantage of tax incentives, like Act 60, benefits that aren't available to the locals. This is just one example of the ongoing economic and political challenges facing Puerto Rico. These issues are complex and deeply rooted in history. While it's important to be aware of this context as a traveler, let's shift our focus to exploring the incredible experiences this island has to offer. For this trip, I only stayed in San Juan. It's the capital and largest city, and is also one of the oldest European established cities in the Americas. However, Puerto Rico was inhabited by the Taino people, and they called the island Boriquen, which translates to the Island of the Brave Lord. The historic district, Old San Juan, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a port city. San Juan itself is a vibrant mix of old and new. Spanish might be the primary language, but English is widely spoken, especially in tourist areas. The local culture is a fascinating fusion of Spanish, African, and indigenous Taino influences, reflected in the food, music, and festivals. Speaking of food, did you know that the piña colada was invented right here in Puerto Rico? For a taste of history and flavor, many visitors head to Barachina, where the drink was supposedly created in the 1950s. It's a must-visit spot for first-timers, and the food was delicious. But personally, I found an even better piña colada at Raíces. Their version is thicker and more flavorful, reminiscent of the best one I ever had in Curaçao. I suspect their secret is a generous dose of coconut cream. Plus, at only $6 for a virgin piña colada, it's a steal. Raíces became popular because it hosted Anthony Bourdain. Make sure to only eat the traditional Puerto Rican dishes here rather than their attempts at other cuisines. It's clear that Puerto Rico is balancing a path between preserving its cultural heritage and adapting to tourism industry pressures. The days I visited Old San Juan, I would see these massive cruise ships docked, and the streets would just be crowded with people who clearly don't travel much. Walking around the streets of Old San Juan, already came here the other day to kind of scope the area out. So I was told that Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I guess beyond that, become really busy, where the cruises, it is a port city, so the cruises will dock, and then people from the cruises are going to be swarming. So as you see, it's kind of empty right now, and in about 30 minutes, this will completely change. I mean, I'm a tourist too, but I'm not a cruise traveler, unless it's to a special place like Antarctica. Now, let's explore where to stay and what to do in this enchanting Caribbean destination. Let's start with accommodation. During my visit, I stayed at 2 distinctly different hotels. First up is the Don Rafa Boutique Hotel. Situated in the historic district of Miramar, this is where urban living comes to life. Inspired by the 1950s ambiance, this hotel is where essence and nostalgia meet to elevate your experience through carefully curated details and personal attention. While its aesthetic is stunning, it's more about style than function. The rooms are cozy, ideal for solo travelers or couples, but storage space is limited and bathrooms are compact. Since my travel companion for this trip was British, her accent was able to sweet talk the front desk to upgrade us to a bigger room without charge. I have the worst luck, so on my own that would have never happened. It's also worth noting that they have a photography policy, so I didn't get much content. Next up is the hotel I spent most of my time at because I ended up doing a partnership with them. Positioned on Isla Verde Beach, the Fairmont El San Juan Hotel has been a mainstay feature of the island since 1958. Originally opened as a San Juan Intercontinental Hotel, it's now a member of Historic Hotels of America. The rich history is evident in its mid-century modern architecture, including a stunning hand-blown chandelier from Czechoslovakia that still graces the lobby today and is impossible to miss. It's literally the first thing you see walking into the lobby. It's a convenient 15-minute ride to and from Old San Juan, but the hotel campus is a great place as an all-day retreat as well, with 4 pools, numerous restaurants like Caña and the lobby, beach access, and a beach club. You can either eat at a breakfast buffet or a la carte at Caña in the mornings, and for dinner, there's a new menu created by Chef Jose Enrique. I woke up at sunrise every morning to enjoy a walk along the beautiful beach before the sun got too high. Each guest room and suite on the property pays homage to San Juan's heritage, and I stayed in a poolside villa room where you can lounge on a private balcony for an elevated island retreat. There are Lilaba Rose 31 fine fragrance scented soaps provided to wash, which I thought was a nice touch because that brand is expensive. That being said, if you've watched this far, I'm going to give some honest thoughts. Since the Fairmont brand is a high-end luxury brand, I was expecting more from this hotel. To be frank, the clientele at this hotel are people you would typically see at all-inclusives, cruises, basically people who don't travel much. That was pretty evident in the breakfast offerings that's more continental and less mofongo. Sure, it's a generalization, but it's not just that. The hallways need updating, and in my room, it was clear there were parts that haven't been cleaned in a very long time. There's also a 15,000 square foot casino which is part of the legacy here. Now, it's worth noting that while Fairmont manages the property, it's still owned by ESG Resort. The hotel joined the Fairmont portfolio in January 2020 after Hilton ended its franchise agreement. I overheard people say this was the best hotel they ever stayed at, so there's a clear difference in standards, and I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. Despite its historical significance and 5-star luxury designation, the current state of the hotel doesn't quite live up to those expectations. It seems the transition to the Fairmont brand is still a work in progress. I'm glad I traded my services to be able to stay here because as a paying customer, I wouldn't have been happy with the standard given that the room I stayed in was pretty pricey. Besides that though, the staff I interacted with there were awesome and made all the difference in the stay. During my time at the hotel, it hosted some high-profile events, including Miss Universe Puerto Rico and a launch party for reggaeton queen, Evie Queen. What are the chances one of Puerto Rico's biggest stars was right in front of me as I ate my guac and chips? While these events are cool, they're not typically what you'd expect at a 5-star luxury hotel, at least not so visibly. It does make me wonder about the criteria for this luxury designation. Despite my reservations, Fairmont El San Juan's rich history and beautiful location can't be denied. It's a property with great potential, and I hope to see it fully live up to its luxury designation. Outside of the hotels, for a unique experience, consider taking a sailing trip around the island. It's a fantastic way to appreciate Puerto Rico's coastline and crystal clear waters. This wasn't something I was originally planning on doing, but said travel companion told me she always has to get on a boat when she travels, and I'm not one to turn down an adventure, so that's exactly what we did. It was a great new experience, and because my friend knew how to sail, the captain thought it would be okay that we sail out into the Atlantic Ocean. I was actually starting to get a little seasick, which never happens when I'm out in the ocean, so the best way to combat that is to sail. This gives you something else to focus on since seasickness is mostly mental. So, for my first time ever sailing, was out with some big swells. To end this, Puerto Rico is a place of contrasts, a blend of familiar and foreign, of rich history and modern challenges. It's a destination that invites you to look beyond the surface, to appreciate its beauty while also acknowledging its complexities. I hope this glimpse into my Puerto Rican adventure has inspired you to explore the Caribbean. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next adventure.